Hi, my name's Lee Bivona, and this is video number 10 in a series I'm calling A Life Worth Living. And this story is called Born Again Belly Button. Quite some time back, there was a fellow who we'll call Ron, and he had stomach cancer and was at home. Had some really significant surgery. About a month before I saw him, I was a home health and home IV nurse, and going to his home, giving him antibiotics and helping with this wound. Surgery had been about a month ago. His wound was a very slow healing wound, very painful, caused him a lot of nausea, and one of those catch-22s, he couldn't eat or drink, which made him more fatigued. The fatigue lended to him not feeling like he had a good appetite, and so this kind of really challenging vicious circle on how to get him feeling good again. He had a feeding tube, and that was discontinued for their family decision reasons. Ron was actually a born-again Christian, and that was a very, very important part of his reality. To the extent that a lot of visitors from church, a lot of biblical quotes centering out of that kind of perspective and for prayer for healing and for miracles, very, very important to him. And here's this very, very slow kind of anguishing process of recovery. If recovery was even happening, there were sometimes we were just feeling like we were just kind of holding things steady because he just wasn't having good wound healing and things, and nausea and pain were so persistent. He was so miserable. And so one day I came to his house, and I had known his wife. She actually worked in the hospital system that I did, and so I just got to know her and her relationship with him, and how important his spirituality was in this whole physical process, and that a lot of his orientation to language and to values was based on a born-again Christian view. And his friends were from church and all. So this was an important part of the cocoon or the umbrella that he kind of wrapped and protected himself in. And so I came to his house, and as I looked at his stomach, there was his belly button, and then below that was this wound. Very, very sensitive, very, very raw. Got a lot of attention, and it literally kind of was a push button for all kinds of things, the pain, distress. There was a sense of futility for him in all of this. Try as he might against his illness, he was really fatigued, he was very scared, lots of prayer, and you could tell by his demeanor he wasn't sure that all of this was going to translate into a good recovery. So very withdrawn. One of the things about his personality that was very important to Ron and to his wife, he was a very gentle man, and actually become more so as the years moved on, and he had a very subtle sense of humor, even kind of a quiet, chuckling sense of humor was kind of where he was when he was at his best, not boisterous or loud in any way. So in my attempt to really connect with this man, the first visit that I had with him, I was very reserved, quite formal, and certainly respecting this man's boundaries, and that this was his castle, this was his house, and this was his illness. And I even spoke with him about that way, in a respectful way, this illness, these issues with your body. So I was trying to make sure that his existence wasn't totally just that wound, that there were these different aspects of himself, his spiritual self, his family, that wound, the recovery of that wound. So I was trying to kind of help put things in safer little boxes where everything didn't just get mushed together into bad, which is kind of what it felt like. The shades were drawn. It was just kind of a heavy setting. So at the end of the first visit, it was very sweet, and all his fatigue, he actually took the time to turn towards me, which took a huge amount of physical energy, to shake my hand and to thank me for coming, and when was I going to come again. And that was quite monumental, because he certainly, in all his fatigue, could have just kind of curled back up and gone back to sleep, or just been withdrawn. So his extending himself out to me was an important thing about trust in me, and his liking me being in his home. It's very important. 2 days later I returned, and so everything again took a tremendous amount of effort. He had a t-shirt on. To get his t-shirt off to be able to see this wound, there were some complications with the wound. the night before, and just really starting again with kind of a heavy load in his heart. So I really tried to tune into all of that with Ron and with his wife. And so I looked at the wound, and I said, Ron, I can see that you're a born-again Christian. And his back got really, really straight. And he said, you can? I said, well, sure, it's self-evident to anybody that's going to look. And he goes, what do you mean? And again, this guy's really, really fatigued. So what am I talking about here? And I said, I'm looking. I mean, it's right here. I look at your belly. I said, I thought this was intentional on your part, because here's your navel where you were born of the body, right? And I said, just 2 inches below that, I thought that this opening here, which kind of looks like a belly button, was a representative of being born of the Spirit. And I swear to God, I have never in my life seen anybody who actually had a physical manifestation of proof of being born of the body with the navel, and then this other opening channel here of being born of the Spirit. And he looked down and he got really, really serious. And I was trying so hard to keep my poker face on. And my face is only about 1.5 feet from him. I always try to kind of get really close to people if I'm going to do this, so they can feel that I really am delightfully playing with them. And his brows got real tight, and he looked down. And he looked, and he actually was assessing this with me, and there was his belly button. And sure enough, about 2 inches below there, that little opening, that wound that had been getting all that attention, kind of looked like another belly button now with its healing. Then he looked down and he looked at them both, and he heard what I was saying about being born of the body and then born of the Spirit. And in all his fatigue, he closes his eyes and puts his right hand on his belly, and he goes, that tiny little sound would be like somebody else falling out laughing, falling from a couch to the floor. It was so huge. This man had not laughed. As his wife told me, it had been months. She was actually trying to figure out the last time that this man had laughed at anything. And she actually figured it was about 2.5 to 3 months. So here it is. He's born again. He's got of the body, of the Spirit. And it was really sweet because still had to do this wound care. And it was painful. And I actually came up with some techniques called gate theory and some other things to help him kind of meter the pain that he was having into smaller blocks rather than just enduring wound care for 30 seconds at a time or a minute at a time. And every now and then, while we're doing more of this technical stuff, you would just hear this quiet little which made it even more dramatic because it was so quiet, and he couldn't help it then. You know, it's one of those sayings that only hurts when I laugh. And so it was kind of in that category. So what a sweet thing. And when the wound care was done and got out of the room and let him rest, got him positioned for good comfort, and was with his wife in the kitchen by that time doing this paperwork, she said, that was amazing. I said, yeah, I went out on a limb on that one. She says, yeah, but she says, he already liked you. And she said, and he knows I am his gatekeeper. And I trust you. And she said, so he likes you, I trust you. And for you to actually go and do that, she says, there is nothing in his life that he loves more than being a born-again Christian. That is the most important thing that he could hear or have said to him. And for you to quietly, gently address that in such a playful and earnest way, and even though you were goofing off, you were still validating how important it was to him, even though it was kind of guised in a joke. She said, that was brilliant. That was so loving. She says, you have no idea. She says, Andy hasn't laughed for over 2 months. She says, this will linger a long time. This is a good day. So what a treasure in that, trying to really understand somebody else's perspective and to come into their world and pick up enough either knowingly or intuitively of what's important to them, and coming into that in a playful way. There's a tendency towards sarcasm in healthcare, but for him in this situation to actually come into his world in a playful and delightful manner, it validated what's important to him. And even though it validated also, he's not up to speed with where he'd like to be with that. Just like people who are nauseous and somebody makes a joke about coming to the hospital for the food. There's a little sarcasm in there, but it validates also the other side of what's important to that person that he can't quite reach, that he can't quite get to, that you both want to help him get to. And that comes from this thing of really being loving and trying to allow my thoughts to be in where their heart and where their thoughts lie. Thank you.